Be ready. 5 seconds. Start. The most important decision of the conference is the Declaration on World Peace and Cooperation. The nations assembled set out the principles which should govern relations between them and indeed the countries of the world as a whole. These are capable of universal application and are historic in their significance. We in India have in recent months sought to formulate the principles which should govern our relations with other countries and often spoken of them as the five principles. In the Bandung Declaration, we find the full embodiment of these five principles and the addition to them of elaborations which reinforce these principles. We have reason to feel happy that this conference, representative of more than half the population of the world, has declared its adherence to the tenets that should guide their conduct and govern the relations of the nations of the world if world peace and cooperation are to be achieved. The House will remember that when the Panchsheel, as we have called them, emerged, they attracted much attention as well as some opposition from different parts of the world. We have maintained that they contain the essence of the principles of relationship which would promote world peace and cooperation. We have not sought to point to them as though they were divine commandments or as though there was a particular sanctity either about the number or about their formulation. The essence of them is the substance, and this has been embodied in the Bandung Declaration. Some alternatives had been proposed, and some of these even formulated contradictory positions. The final declaration embodies no contradictions. The Government of India is in total agreement with the principles set out in the Bandung Declaration and will honor them. They contain nothing that is against the interests of our country or the established principles of our foreign policy. The declaration includes a clause which has a reference to collective defense. The House knows that we are opposed to military pacts, and I have repeatedly stated that these pacts, based upon the idea of balance of power and negotiation, form strength, and the grouping of nations into rival camps are not, in our view, a contribution to peace. We maintain that view. The Bandung Declaration, however, relates to self defense in terms of the Charter of the United Nations. The provisions of the Charter make it clear about the inherent right of self defense. It will be also noted that the Bandung Declaration further finds place for two specific safeguards in relation to this matter, namely that there should be no external pressures on nations and that collective defense arrangements should not be used to serve the particular interests of the big powers. We are also happy that the declaration begins with a statement of adherence to human rights and therefore to the fundamental values of civilization. If the conference made no other decision than the formulation of the principles of the Bandung Declaration, it would have been a signal achievement. So much for the actual work and achievement within the conference itself. But any estimate of this historic week at Bandung would be incomplete and its picture would be inadequate if we did not take into account the many contacts established, the relations that have emerged, the prejudices that have been removed, and the friendships that have been formed. More particularly, reference should be made to the conversations and happily some constructive results arising from private talks. Such results have been achieved in regard to some of the difficulties that had arisen in relation to the implementation of the Geneva decisions in Indo China direct meetings of the parties concerned and the good offices of others, including ourselves, have been able to help to resolve these difficulties and create greater understanding and friendship. This is the position in regard to Cambodia, Laos, and of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam. We regret, however, that we have not been able to make progress in this regard in respect of South Vietnam. This must await time and further endeavor. The House is aware that the Prime Minister of China made while he was at Bandung a public statement announcing his readiness to enter into direct negotiations with the United Nations, United States to discuss the question of relaxing tension in the Far East and especially the question of relaxing tension in the Formosa area. We have known for some time that China was willing to enter into direct talks, and other parties concerned have also not been unwary of it. The announcement itself does not therefore represent a new attitude on the part of China, but the fact that this has been publicly stated at a gathering of the Asian and African nations represents a further and wholesome development. If this is availed of by all concerned, it can lead to an approach towards peaceful settlement. I had several conversations with Chinese premier and some of these related to Formosa. At my request, our defense minister had also explored certain aspects of this question with the Prime Minister of China. Stop.